Hey everybody, let's do some basic image adjustments like crop, rotate, and scale. So I'm going to show you a little image here so we can work on that using Adobe Photoshop. So here we have an image that obviously came in on its side, needs to have a few adjustments to it to fix it. So let's walk through some of the simple steps to fix it. If you look at it, we can make a basic image adjustment under the image menu. So first things first, let's go to the image menu and go to image rotation. And here you'll see some of the very simple adjustments, such as rotate 180 degrees, 90 degrees, counterclockwise or clockwise, or you can flip and flop the rotation. I'm going to do 90 degrees counterclockwise on this picture. So that way, now I get it sitting in the right direction. Now, I don't need to, but I could if I wanted, flip horizontal. So that's going to flip it the other way. Actually, you wouldn't really know this image was flipped other than just the little R there written on the side of the tank. But that's a simple adjustment that can be made using the image rotation feature. Now, something to point out is we should analyze the size and scale of this picture. A lot of times, as you're working with images, you're going to bring in a picture to Photoshop, and you need to decide what the ultimate size should be. Other times, you'll be starting from scratch. You'll be creating an image and determining the size from the beginning. But if you're working with an alternate image, depending on the source, your scale could be very different depending on whether it needs to be printed, put on the web, or put somewhere else. So it's a good idea to look at under image, under the image menu, it's a good idea to go look at image size. So this is going to tell you the detail you need to know about this picture. It's going to tell you the actual pixel dimensions, it's going to tell you the printing dimensions, and it's going to tell you the resolution. Now, there is a direct relationship between the height, the width, and the resolution of the image. So 72 for pixels per inch is very low, and that's kind of the minimum for displays and for digital images. But you can see if I was going to print that, that's not a good size, and that's going to turn out really pixelated when I print. So looking at this image size, I can rescale it right here to match printer dimensions. So I can just highlight the resolution and type in 300 to make this more appropriate for printing scale. Now notice the printing dimension changed when I changed the 300 dpi, but the pixel dimension did not. So that's an important thing to pay attention to, is your pixel dimensions can be separate from the actual printer dimensions based on their resolution. Just how densely packed the pixels are, whether they're spread out or they're densely packed together, determines the printer dimension. It is possible to click resample here and manually modify and change those dimensions. So if I click resample and then I just decide, hey, I'm going to make this picture 24 inches wide, it will scale it up. But it's hard to tell. Maybe I'll do it a little more dramatically. Maybe I'll scale up to 50 inches. You can see the higher the dimension you go, leaving resolution as a constant, notice the file size goes up, the pixel size went up, and the quality went down. So the quality of that image is lost. That's because Photoshop is inventing pixels to place in that image. It has to do that. And whenever you have to add pixels or create pixels, your images get blurry. So again, there's another one of those little things that you just want to work with the highest quality images you can from the beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel and let that go. All right, let's straighten this image. You can see it has a little irregular white border. So let's switch over to the crop tool and see what we can do to this picture. So if I select crop, you'll see that I have some some options here. Now, there are a few adjustments up here at the top, like auto straighten or delete crop pixels or content aware. So there's some pretty fancy stuff that the cropping tool can do. I'm going to unselect delete crop pixels. That's something that you could do on your file as well. Essentially, that means that if you need to recrop your image, or for some reason you need to adjust it, Photoshop isn't going to remove that data from the file. If instead you have delete crop pixels selected, Photoshop is going to delete that data and your picture will be permanently cropped. Here's a pretty nifty thing. You can actually rotate and crop your picture at the same time with the current cropping tool. So notice wherever you position your cursor, it's going to change the type of cursor you have. If I hover my cursor over one of the midpoints, you can see it gets a back and forth or a rotate arrow. If I'm hovering directly over one of the corner tabs, you see it's a back and forth, so it's a scale arrow. So let's say I go in the middle with my mouse and I just try to rotate just slightly to straighten the image. Notice that grid appeared, which is supposed to help me straighten the picture. And you can see how it also has the rule of thirds grid in the middle too to help me out. So I'm going to try to straighten while cropping that picture. And I get it in the center the way I want it so that the edges are just inside the hairline edge of that image. And then when I'm finished and I get it where I want it, I can either select the check mark up at the top or hit return on my keyboard. Now it looks like I missed just a slight little corner on the side. So actually, I'm going to fix this another way. Since I have that little sliver on the edge, sometimes using the crop tool, it's a little tricky to try to get that little corner. I'm going to go ahead and use the canvas adjustment to make that fix. So under the image menu, I'm going to go to canvas size. Okay, and here you can see it breaks it down to the exact dimension. Right now it's got 42.514 and 28.333. So these are fractions of a number. I could adjust this to be whole numbers and make myself and my OCD really happy. But look at how the canvas adjustment works. Right now it shows me that the image would be centered, and then the image is either going to be expanded or contracted uniformly from the center of the image. But if I select the side, for example, with my cursor, notice how it recenters the scale and it's going to be adjusting from the left edge outward or inward. And that would happen depending on wherever you select in the little quadrant. It's going to change the way the image is cropped. So let's say I just actually want to cut off part of the right edge and I want to scale it down just slightly. So what I'll do is adjust the canvas, and I'm in this case adjusting the width, and I just need to get rid of that little sliver. And if I type in 42.45, or actually I'm just going to make it 42.5, and then I click OK, it's going to warn me, do you really want to crop this? You're cropping off some of the edge. Say yes, and you can see it just slid and cut off that slight edge on the side. And now my picture is kind of centered, cropped, and rotated the way I want it. So again, there are some other automated features and more detailed things which you can control. In the cropping window, there are also scaled and fixed widths you can use. So you can adjust your scale based on a ratio, 1:1 square, widescreen, front image, pixel dimension. You know, so you have a variety of options here available to you to fix your image. Or you can just keep it standard where you can adjust it as needed, basically freehanding it. All right. Notice that while I was making those edits in the layer palette, it actually unlocked my image and created layer 0. So this happens to images when you're adjusting them using crop and rotate and things like that, because Photoshop needs to unflatten the image and allow you the freedom of moving and sliding the image in the document window. Um, what does that mean? Basically, that means that when you save this, you need to decide, do I need to flatten it and resave as a JPEG file, or am I keeping this as a master edited file for some reason or another? So I'm going to save it as a Photoshop file. So I just want to point that out so you can kind of pay attention to how you're adjusting your images and what you do with them once they're fixed. All right, so that's going to wrap up those little tips on adjusting, cropping, and rotating images, and I'll see you next time.